Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare हरि बोल हरि बोल थोड़ा साउंड दीजिए कृष्ण हरे हरे रामा हरे रामा राम राम हरे हरे बोलिए हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, thank you for joining this morning, our Srimad Bhagavatam class and attentive chanting. We'll make a start, and if anybody else wants to join, they can just join as we progress. So today we're talking about the first step in God realization. So Maharaj Parikshit is on the verge of his death, and he has Shukadeva Goswami in front of him, and all the sages are there. And Maharaj Parikshit has got 7 days to leave his body. And he asked 2 questions to the sages, and he wanted a consensus answer. And they couldn't actually decide, what is they all had their own opinions. And Shukadeva Goswami came and he answered the 2 questions. And the first question was, what is the specific duty of everyone in all circumstances, which we answered last week, is hearing, chanting, and always remembering Krishna. That's our duty in life. And then Sukadeva Goswami answered the second question: what is the specific duty of one who is about to die, who's going to die very shortly? So we'll look at that today. Let's do a quick prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum lamyate karim yat kirpa tamam vande Shri Guru Teen Taranam Paramanant Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tatsat. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiriyet Nastapreshav Avadareshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Nistiki Jai. So Sukadeva Goswami, he gives the example of Maharaj Khatvanga, which we have covered in the past, the Khatvanga moment. So Maharaj Khatvanga only had a moment to live, whereas Sukadeva Goswami has whole week. So the saintly king Khatvanga, after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment more, at once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead. So Sri Prabhupada mentions that a fully responsible man should always be conscious of the prime duty of the present human form of life. The activities to meet the immediate necessities of material life are not everything. So the prime duty is more important. One should always be alert in his duty for attainment of the best situation in the next life. So we should be preparing for our next life always. Human life is meant for preparing ourselves for that prime duty. Maharaj Khatvanga is mentioned herein as a saintly king because even within the responsibility of the state management, he was not at all forgetful of the prime duty of life. Such was the case with other Rajrishis, saintly kings like Maharaj Yudhishthir and Maharaj Parikshit. They were all exemplary personalities on account of their being alert in discharging their prime duty. So this attempt, even for a moment, by the saintly King Katvanga was successful because he was always alert to his prime duty. Maharaj Parikshit was thus encouraged by the great sage Shukadeva Goswami, even though he had only 7 days left in his life, to execute the prime duty of hearing the glories of the Lord in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Maharaj Parikshit, now your duration of life is limited to 7 more days. So during this time, you can perform all those rituals which are needed for the best purpose of your next life. So he has 7 days to prepare for his next life. Although he was already very realized, but just for the 7 days, uh, any creases in there, he need to just iron out. So indirectly, the Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit that he should take shelter of the sound representation of the Lord for the 7 days still remaining in the duration of his life and thus get himself liberated. In other words, everyone can best prepare himself for the next life simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, as it was recited by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. I mean, to be honest, we don't know how much time we have. At least Shukadeva Goswami, he knew at 7 days. We don't know whether we got 7 seconds or 7 minutes. We just don't know. So we are all preparing for our 7 days, for our last 7 days alive, because we just don't know how much time we have. Because everyone is a dying man, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned. At the last stage of one's life, one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death, but one must cut off all attachment to the material body and everything pertaining to it and all desires thereof. The living entity is eternal, and therefore his desires, which are natural for a living being, are also eternal. So we cannot stop our desires. One cannot therefore stop desiring, but the subject matter for desires can be changed. We can't stop desiring, but we can change our desires, that's for sure. So one must develop the desire for returning home, back to Godhead, and automatically the desires for material gain, material honor, and material popularity will diminish in proportion to the development of devotional service. A living being is meant for service activities, and his desires are centered around such a service attitude. So we can't stop desiring, but we can change our desires to the material gain, popularity, etc. We can change our desires to desire for executing the services for next life's benefit. So beginning from the top executive head of the state down to the insignificant pauper in the street, all are rendering some sort of service to others. The perfection of such a service attitude is only attained simply by transferring the desire of service from matter to spirit, from Satan to God. So that's all we do. We're just moving our desires. Now, letting go of the attachments and material conceptions is very difficult. So until we know where to place our identity, but letting go is essential. Otherwise, we can't make progress in bhakti. So if we are going to let go of something, we're going to let go of our desires, we need to have somewhere to place them. Otherwise, we have nothing to do. We'll be pretty bored in life, if we don't follow any kind of desire. So we just need to shift from desires to one place, from material to spiritual. That's all. So it's essential that we know where our desires are going. Now, controlling the mind. So the mind is the one, makes all these schemes. So one's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature. So it's agitated by the passionate mode and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty thing created by them. Excuse me. Persons generally conducted by the mode of passion and ignorance cannot be bona fide candidates for being situated in the transcendental stage of God realization. Only persons conducted by the mode of goodness can have the knowledge of the supreme truth. effects of the modes of passion and ignorance are manifested by too much hankering after wealth and women. So people in the mode of passion and ignorance would be doing these things. Now in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that after many hundreds of births, the impersonal philosopher surrenders onto the personal Godhead. And this process of bhakti, once you've surrendered, dissolves the material mind. Now, gradually, as the mind becomes progressively spiritualized, we withdraw it from sense activities, and by intelligence, the senses will be controlled. The mind, too, absorbed in material activities, can be engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead and become fixed in full transcendental consciousness. So we're talking about the mind now. So if we want to get into the mode of goodness and prepare for our next life, then we really need to be in the mode of goodness, and we really need to control the mind. The mind, although ceasing to think of sensual activities at present, remembers past sensual activities from the subconscious status and thus disturbs one from the 100% engagement in self-realization. So the mind is the culprit. So therefore, Shukadeva Goswami recommends the next step of assured policy, namely to fix one's mind in the service of the personality Godhead, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality Godhead. There is a direct process mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 6.47. It says, Yogi Nama Pisavisham. Thus, the mind being spiritually cleansed, one should at once engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord by the different devotional activities of hearing, chanting, etc., which we already mentioned. And if performed under proper guidance, that is the surest path of progress, even for the disturbed mind. So obviously we start with this, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna, and the mind starts becoming peaceful. The fortunate king Parikshit, inquiring further, said, O Brahman, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied, and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed. So now we're moving a bit further ahead. So how can we actually control the mind? The detail. The dirty things in the heart of a conditioned soul are the root cause of all troubles for him. A conditioned soul is surrounded by the manifold miseries of material existence, but on account of his gross ignorance, he is unable to remove the troubles due to dirty things in the heart. So heart, mind, same thing. Accumulated during the long prison life in the material world, he is actually meant to serve the will of the Supreme Lord, but on account of the dirty things in the heart, he likes to serve his concocted desires. These desires, instead of giving him any peace of mind, create new problems and thus bind him to the cycle of repeated birth and death. These dirty things of fruitic work and empiric philosophy can be removed only by association with the Supreme Lord. The Lord, being omnipotent, can offer his association by his inconceivable potencies. So Shukadeva Goswami mentions that there are some preliminary stages that can be used, especially by those who are not ready to accept God in his personal state. So we consider ourselves as devotees. So we are already doing this process. We are hearing, chanting, when Krishna, we listen to Srimad Bhagavatam. We try to break our attachments by chanting. Chanting helps. That is the sign that we are progressing. When our material attachments get less and less, hankering gets less and less. That's the progress we're making. So Maharaj Parikshit is asking, really, he's trying to get into the nitty-gritty of what about the people who don't really believe in Krishna or his personal form? What about them? So Shukadeva Goswami is saying that there are some preliminary stages that can be used, especially by those who are not ready to accept God in his personal state. So Shukadeva Goswami gives various options to build a relationship with the Lord. So these we'll discuss the week after, next week, and the week after. We can go into that. So mention further, the persons who are unable to pin their faith on the personal feature of the absolute Lord are given a chance to associate with his Virat Roop, or the cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord. The cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord is a feature of his unlimited potencies. Since the potent and potencies are identical, even the conceptions of his impersonal cosmic feature helps the conditioned soul to associate with the Lord indirectly and thus gradually rise to the stage of personal contact, which we'll discuss next week after. So Maharaj Parikshit was, now just coming back to Maharaj Parikshit again, because he's asked about, how can other people do this, prepare for going back, even though they don't believe in the Lord. But Maharaj Parikshit himself, he's already a devotee. So just coming back to that, Maharaj Parikshit was already directly connected with the personal feature of the Lord. So he wasn't impersonal. So Shri Krishna. So, and as such, he had no need to inquire from Shukadeva Goswami about where and how to apply the mind in the impersonal Virat Rupa of the Lord. But he inquired after a detailed description of the matter for the benefit of others who are unable to conceive of the transcendental personal feature of the Lord as the form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. The non-devotee class of men cannot think of the personal feature of the Lord because of the poor fund of knowledge. The personal form of the Lord, like Ram and Krishna, is completely revolting to them. They have a poor estimation of the potency of the Lord. And in Bhagavad-Gita 9.11, it says, Avijanati Mamuda. These mood are explained by the Lord himself. The people with the poor fund of knowledge deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, taking him to be a common man. And such men are ignorant of the inconceivable potency of the Lord. And by this inconceivable potency of the Lord, he can move in human society or any other society of living being, yet remain the same omnipotent Lord. So Krishna, he doesn't get affected by the material nature without deviating in the slightest from his transcendental position. So for the Lord of men, for the benefit of men who are unable to accept the Lord in his personal eternal form, Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami how to fix the mind on him in the beginning, and the Goswami replied in detail. So Shukadeva Goswami answered that one should control the sitting posture. So he's talking about a yogi. So persons who are not devotees, they have to do yoga. Regulate the breathing process by the yogic pranayama and thus control the mind and senses, and with intelligence apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord called the Virat Rup. Now, the material absorbed mind of the conditioned soul doesn't allow him to transcend the limit of the bodily conception of self. And thus, the yoga system for meditation, controlling the sitting posture and breathing process, fixing the mind upon stream, is prescribed in order to mold the character of the gross materialist. And unless such materialists are able to cleanse the materially absorbed mind, it is impossible for them to concentrate upon the thoughts of transcendence. And to do so, one may fix one's mind and the gross material or external feature of the Lord. The materialistic men are very anxious to have some mystic powers as a result of such controlling process. So when they start doing yoga, instead of trying to get God realization, they are happy with getting the special powers that you get from these yoga processes. But the real process of yogic regulation is to eradicate the accumulated dirty things like lust, anger, avarice, and all such material contaminations. Now, if the mystic yogi is diverted by the accompanying feats of mystic control, then his mission of yogic succession is a failure. So if he's get diverted to get powers rather than the Lord himself, then it's suggested that all the hard work has been wasted. Because the ultimate aim is God realization. Here, he is therefore recommended to fix his gross materialistic mind by a different conception and thus realize the potency of the Lord. As soon as the potencies are understood to be instrumental manifestations of transcendence, one automatically advances to the next step, and gradually the stage of full realization becomes possible for him. So the Asuras don't accept any evidential proof from the revealed scriptures, nor do they recognize the authority of the great acharyas. They want to see with their own eyes at once. Therefore, they can see the gigantic body of the Lord as Virat, because they won't be able to see Krishna. So the martyrs will see the gigantic body of the Lord as Virat Rup, which will answer their challenge. And since they are accustomed to paying homage to superior material strength, like that of the tiger, elephant, and lightning, they can offer respect to the Virat Roop. And this is a favor of the all merciful Lord to the atheists and the gross materialists. So it's a difficult topic that we are covering. So just please bear with me. It's going to take 2-3 sessions to really understand what's going on here. So Maharaj Parikshit is actually asking about, not just for himself, he's asking for everybody. And Sukadeva Goswami is replying. Maharaj Parikshit is already realized soul anyway, but he just, while he's here, because he's a king, he feels responsible for everyone in his kingdom, and he wants everybody to go back home. And that should be our attitude as well. That instead of saying, what can I do, what should I do, what do I need to do, where will I go, we should be thinking, how can I help other people as well? What else can I do to get them back home? And then Krishna is more pleased with that, instead of we just thinking about ourselves. So Sukadeva Goswami mentions some preliminary mechanical methods to begin the process of purification, like chanting Om. So this is another thing. As a yogi, he mentioned that if you can't say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, then you can just say Om instead. But Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya is more personal. But if you're not a personalist, then as an impersonalist, you can just chant Om and meditate on the Virat Roop. But for Maharaj Parikshit, he was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and he had also detached himself from the material conception of life. He had left home, he had left everything, his family, his kingdom, his worldly possessions. He had left everything. He had given up everything. And now in his 7 days, he was going to listen to Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is the way, that is the aim of someone who has time of his death. That's what they should be doing. Give up everything, all the material conceptions, all the attachments, and just focus on Lord. And Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord is absolute, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is a sound representation of the Lord. So if someone's mind is not completely spiritualized, the soul will be carried to wherever it's attached to. So this is the danger. So if you still have attachments, different kind of attachments, your mind will be carried to that position, or to that kind of birth, to that kind of mother. So it's very, very important that in the last, that we should always be, actually not just last, because we don't know when we're going to die, we should always be prepared mentally not to have hankering or attachments. We should be always connected to the Lord if we want to go back to the kingdom of God. Otherwise, we will end up, whatever we are attached to, our soul will be carried there, because our consciousness is already there. The soul will definitely go there as well. So this is the aim of this. So if we want God realization, then we have to be really connected to the Lord all the time. Everything should be done for his benefit, to please him. Hare Krishna. So that is that, and I hope it made some kind of sense. And we'll, like I said, we'll discuss more. Next week we'll talk about the chanting itself, and the offenses we commit, how we commit offenses to the holy name itself, whereas we use the holy name to counteract other offenses. But what about when we commit offenses to the holy name itself? What happens then? So that would be interesting to discuss. We'll do that next week. So thank you all for joining. Prem Prakash Prabhu, Rukmani Mataji, Jai Prabhu, Parveen Mataji, and Sarvashri Mataji. Thank you for joining. And Radharani, thank you for joining as well. And so Jai Prabhu is here today. Prabhu, what do you gain from this? Any realizations you understand from this, Prabhu?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I was just mention a few points that you said. Also, the prime duty of life is to prepare for the next life. I mean, how long one lives is not significant, but I mean, even if you live for 100 years, life could be wasted, if there's no attempt to gain any spiritual knowledge. So, I think you said one of the best ways to prepare for next life is listening to Srimad Bhagavatam. So, even though Maharaj Pariksit had only 7 days remaining, he knew he had 7 days remaining. It still was enough time for him to prepare for the next life. So, I mean, at the end of life, one must cut off all attachment to the body and shift desires from material to spiritual. And yeah, I mean, if you have any attachment, at the end of life, I mean, that's the destination you'll get. If you think of somebody else, some relative, then you'll probably end up going with them again. But, so it's important to, have the mind fixed on God at the end of life. Yeah, I think you mentioned, yogic process and, about you have to do these breathing exercises and whatnot. It sounded a bit like Ashtanga yoga. So, I mean, the only thing I've got to say is most people don't know when their life is going to end. I mean, even if somebody's dying in hospital, I mean, they'll still have hope. They're going to get better. So, I mean, most people really don't know when they're going to die, and can't really prepare. That's what I've got to say.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Ravi. Absolutely. So that attitude we should always have. We always should be prepared. We should always be ready for death. That's, I think that's the key. That we're always ready. And obviously, breaking attachments is a slow process. But the more we connect to the spiritual life, the more we shift from the material attachments. So that's the thing. So if we push towards the spiritual life, automatically we'll start leaving the material, because we move into the higher taste, we'll give up the lower taste. It happens subconsciously, happens automatically. It's very, very sublime way of doing it. So that's what's mentioned here, that the most devotion service we do, the more we get detached from our material hankerings. And our devotion service doesn't mean that we do running around and all this and that. Devotion service, there's 9 processes, and it starts with hearing, chanting, and always remembering the Lord. So that is devotion service, and that is duty for everyone, that we should always be doing these things. So we can all do that, at least at any age, any stage of our lives, and whatever health condition we are in, we can still at least do these 3 things. So thank you, Jai Prabhu. And Rukun Mataji, you want to add something? Hare Krishna.
I can't add anything, Prabhuji. I am not that greatest soul. But yes, I like this class. And you said the preliminary stages, chanting helps. So we have to try to be in a mode of goodness. So now we are on the right path, and we have started chanting and worshipping God, all our Nitya Seva. So I think it may help us to get to the Supreme Soul, Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah.
Very, very important class to learn from this.
Yeah. And it also shows that we're doing the right thing. From this, from Srimad Bhagavatam class, it shows us that we are doing the right thing. Now, we're following the processes, but we are still in the mechanical stage, aren't we? We are still because we're doing anartha nivriti. Most of us in the anartha nivriti, because that's a very long stage. We're trying to get to anarthas. So the main thing is always to increase our service, and also just be conscious that are we detached, because Maya is very tricky, very strong. It can pull us back into attachments. We just need to be conscious of our attachments, that we are, yes, we are breaking free from the attachments and not just getting back, sucked back again and again.
Yeah, Prabhuji, we have to try to be in a mode of goodness.
Yeah.
So we can have the knowledge of Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So what does that mean? We have to be in mode of goodness, Mataji?
Mode of goodness means to be honest, and we have to chant attentively. We have to worship. These are the signs of the devotee.
Yeah.
And we don't do any wrong things. We have to follow Gita's. We have to follow the Bhagavad-Gita's rules and regulations by reading Bhagavad-Gita, by chanting attentively, and we have to try hard for that. Then we can have the knowledge of Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Absolutely.
Actually, we know the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but we are not still a right person, pious person to get the darshan of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these are all the lessons for us to be a real devotee, pious devotee.
Yeah.
Hare.
Thank you so much, Mani. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, Parveen Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sorry, I'm out with my grandson. So, yeah, very good class. Pranam to everyone. And we are so grateful to Parikshit Maharaj to ask the most important question for the human society because of Parikshit Maharaj. Because I don't think I would have been hearing Bhagavatam, because I never got the opportunity when I was young. But I still had that thing in my head, which I picked up somewhere, that you have to read Bhagavatam, and Parikshit Maharaj did when he had only 7 days left. And I remember saying about 2 years ago to one of the Birmingham devotees that I really want to hear Bhagavatam. I've never heard, and I've heard that you have to hear Bhagavatam and prepare yourself. I didn't know then that we have to go back to Godhead. And very nice points you said, Prabhuji, that we don't have to give up desires, but we have to desire the right things, devotional service, and we don't have to give up attachment either, but the attachment has to be to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we don't have to give up anything, but it's just dovetailing everything, to Krishna. And from my personal experience, I can say that, it just gives you so much happiness and joy. And it does help you to get out of anxiety, because when I lost my mother, I was having anxiety attacks. And then I went to one of the temples, and the priest, I just told him that I've lost my mother, because I lost like quite a few people in a short space, and I was really struggling. And he gave me a shalok. It was Krishna's shalok, and it just gave me so much strength. So now, coming to Krishna consciousness, it has really changed my thinking and everything. So thank you so much, Prabhuji. So very, very important class. Well, all are important. And you are Sukhdev Goswami helping us by reciting Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, I'm taking association that Srimad Bhagavatam is mentioned as a representation of the sound is form of the Lord. So we are associating with the Lord when we listen to Srimad Bhagavatam. And the main thing is that we have to spiritualize everything, spiritualize the activities, our thoughts, our attachments, spiritualize everything, and then only we can go back. Thank you so much, Mataji. We have Prem Prakash Prabhu. Prabhuji, are you there? Or do we have Aradhya today? He's going to answer.
Hey, Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
Prabhuji, can I be there in just 1 minute, if that's okay?
Oh, Jai, where are you, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. Just give me 1 minute, Prabhuji. If anyone, I can go next to anyone, if that's okay.
That's okay.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Okay. Swashi Mataji, would you like to say something?
Hare Krishna.
Jai Mataji.
My realization is the most important thing is hearing, Shravanam, like Maharaj Parikshit did. And by hearing, he went back to Godhead. And one should hear, to know Krishna, one should hear about his name, his activities, how he looks, his fame, his pastimes. And we get all this information by reading Bhagavatam, or we can get it from, if you attend any lectures or classes, you get the information. And without hearing, one cannot know Krishna. We get our realization through God realization through our senses and mind. We have 5 senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Mind is the sitting place of all the senses. And but we must try to control our senses and mind through devotional service. If one is not so advanced in devotional service, then the other option is pranayam, breathing and sitting position given in the Shastras, which is difficult in this age. So best thing is to hear Krishna, about Krishna from right sources. When we say we hear about Krishna, so we must think, why we hearing about Krishna? What will do to us? See, by hearing Krishna Katha or hearing about Krishna's activities, one will be delivered from sinful activities, because we do our sinful activity every day. We hear today, and then our sinful activities finishes, and then we do sinful activities the same. So it's better to hear every day and try to read Bhagavatam, to hear about Krishna's Katha. And the second is get free from repeated birth and death. If you hear about Krishna, like Raja Parikshit, he had Bhagavatam and he was free from birth and death. And then if we know a person, then we get attachment and love. Without knowing a person, you can't get attachment, like in your friends or any families, relatives. If you know, then you get attachment and love. If you don't know a person, you won't get attachment or love. And by hearing, one can go back to head. They said there's 5 sense. The body is like how chariot is given in some Upanishads or Shastras, I can't remember where. The body is like a chariot, and the 5 senses is like 5 horses, and the mind is like rain, and the intelligence is like a driver. So intelligence, the driver should be very important, because he is holding the rope or he's holding the rein to control the horses. So the intelligence should control the mind, and the mind control the senses. So mostly I think is very, very important thing in the devotional service is hearing. Without hearing, without knowing Krishna, you can't do no service. So best thing is, that's what my point is today, is hearing. It is very, very important. And is the first one is the devotionals. About from 9 devotional service, the first one is hearing, or Shravanam. That's what I can think of. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Hare.
Bhakti. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yeah, best way to purify ourselves is by hearing. Even when we are chanting, we have to hear, because unless we are attentively chanting and hearing what we are chanting, it's not going to be as much potent, as we have to hear the chanting, that and the chanting should go into our heart and purify us. That's what we're trying to do. The contaminations in the heart, we're trying to purify and also awaken the love of the Lord, which is already there, it's dormant, but just needs awakening. So yeah, hearing is a very important process, and for that, Krishna says chant my name, and Krishna says listen to Srimad Bhagavatam, listen about him, and it will definitely benefit us. Krishna doesn't say this because he wants people to, he want people to hear about him. He's saying that is the medicine that of especially Kali Yuga, that's what we need if we want to go back home again. Right, Prem Prakash Prabhu, are we ready?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, Dana Pranam. Very well. Hare Krishna. Today was a bit fight for me because Aradhya goes to school and then many things comes in. Anyways, Hare Krishna, Dana Pranam. So I was just, I have a very small realization saying that obviously like chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is just like a food. So we need to know that if we are hungry, then we'll feel that we are hungry. Sometimes we don't even realize when we are distracted watching TV or something, we won't feel hungry. The moment we close that down, the distractions, we'll immediately feel that their hunger is there, and then we'll go for that. So first thing what I realized is that we need to just take down the distractions down somehow, and then we'll start feeling spiritually hungry. And then when we chant the holy name, then we taste, then we see that we are tasting, that that's ahar for our spiritual soul. Ahar is intake for the spiritual soul, and then we feel satisfied. So that's one thing. That's one small realization I have. Another thing is that we also need to see that how much prepared we are in Krishna consciousness. Very small test. What we can do, very small test is that we can chant all the time, but it's important to remember when we actually in this distress situation, we could remember Krishna. That is the most important thing is there. So people will be doing remembering Krishna when the things are normal, when the things are conducive. But the moment we have to remember Krishna in a sudden situation, I remember one of my time that when my leg actually broke and I had an operation on it, I was not able to do so. I fell down. It was a very bad situation for me. But at that particular moment when I should have remembered Krishna, I was not able to do so. My pain was something more important for me. So what I suggested someone earlier, and I want to just share that with you, it might not be very relevant. In a dark room, if we go in a dark room and somebody comes from behind and just do a boo to us, basically, what are we going to remember? Is something what are feelings at that time? Do we remember Krishna at that time? That is one test that we have. Another test is that we are in extreme pain. Are we able to remember Krishna? So these are the two tests. Basically, we can ask these questions to us again and then see that are we prepared for these tests, and then I start chanting with that particular mood that Krishna help me remember you when I really need you. So that's something which I would like to share. Very small thing, might not be very label, but that's what I have. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's indicators. We can have indicators to show us that are we heading in the right direction, or are we improving? And I think a third one we could add to that list is that I find we are still not mastered yet is when we're really hungry and we quickly eat. Sometimes you might have to eat food outside or something. You say Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu. I don't know if it is has any substance to saying that, because some say it doesn't really matter, but we still remember Lord anyway. When we're about to eat, we should offer it to him first. But you find when you're very hungry, you eat first and then you remember the Lord after you bite. And I still struggle with that. I'm thinking, oh my God, we're not still quite there. Now that some food's gone in. Oh, sorry, Krishna, I forgot to offer to you. Here you are. So I think that could also be a good test. So how much do we remember Krishna? We think we remember Krishna, but like you say, when we're under pressure, we forget so easily. We really forget so easily. And
I mean, there are steps, Prabhuji. Just with the food, I'll also add water into it, because food is something which we actually get accustomed to, thanks to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj, that Sharira Vidya Jal is there, and then many things are there which actually makes us remind. But for water, we normally, most of the times, tend to not remember Krishna, just having the water.
yeah, absolutely. You
So,
take your sips and then think, oh, didn't offer it. Yeah, so easy. And I think happens to a lot of people that I've discussed this with, and they, same problem. You just don't remember at the time. It's so easy because we always putting ourselves first. You know, I need this, and then when we're satisfied, then we start looking at other people, or we think about God after that. And if we can learn to put God first, and then because God always puts us first, he never forgets us. And I think that's it's really is all about the attitude. So many sannyasis are always reminding us every week that it's all about the attitude, what attitude we carry, and that attitude will carry us back home to Godhead. So thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I wanted to thank Prem Prakash Prabhuji for a very good practical tip, because I always get scared, because like my kitchen is, my back is towards my door, and my son, he'll always come in very quietly and then say, hello mom. Then I just jump and I say, Sandeep, why do you do that? I do get angry then. So, but I will now try to remember Krishna. And so I will try not to get scared and not get angry with him. So that's really good. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Jai. Okay, let's do a round now. I think Rukmini Mataji would like to start today.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's do some rounds. And thank you all so much. Let's do a couple of rounds. Okay.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda